Hello and welcome back to Shoogly Shed Motors. This is an episode about Mrs. Shoogly's Yamaha Fazer 600. The job today is to switch out the original clocks for a replacement sort of mini unit. Just before I go any further, we've reached 1,000 subscribers! What? Amazing. Thank you so much, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, to everyone who has subscribed already. It really does mean a lot, and that, anyone that's subscribed for a wee while now knows that I've been aiming for that 1,000 for quite some time, and it feels good to be there. So hopefully, onwards and upwards with this, and I hope that you're enjoying the content I'm putting out. It's not as much content as I would like to be putting out, and I'm hoping to, increase that in the near future, especially with the XJR project behind me. But this is just a little interlude to get the Fazer basically finished up. All I want to do is switch out the big clocks for a mini unit, and I'll show you that in a second. But anyway, I digress. Thank you so much, everyone. Honestly, I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who's shared me. You all know who you are. If I try and name names, I'll just forget someone and offend you all. But yeah, thank you again, and yeah, let's go on with it. Okay, functionally, there's nothing wrong with these clocks. They are the clocks that came on the bike. Background, if you didn't see the last episode on this bike, it did come with a fairing unit at the front where the clocks were incorporated into it. That's kind of stock on these bikes. But we were hoping to go for the more naked approach on this bike. So we've taken the fairing off, switched it out for a regular headlight, and then we're left with the conundrum of the clocks. So I did, in the last episode, fabricate this bracket to hold the original clocks on, and it's functional, and we have had the bike out for a test ride. It does work, it holds the clocks fairly well. They vibrate a little bit on going over bumps and things, but manageable. However, aesthetically, I just think they look a bit big and bulky, and I know that quite a few people in the comments agreed with me when I mentioned that in the last episode. So I've kind of taken a decision to just switch these out. I was toying with butchering them and making like my own clock setup, but frankly, I don't want to commit the time to something like that right now, because I have an XJR 1300 that I'm desperate to get my mitts on sitting behind me. So if I can get this job ticked off, then I can forget about it and get into the meat of that project, as I'm sure everyone's looking forward to me doing anyway. So what I'm going to do today is take off this clock, have a look at the new one, and see about the wiring setup. It's a little bit different, and I'll show you in a second. And then I also need to fabricate, or at least to modify this bracket that I made. Okay, so we have the old clocks removed. I have also cut the connection cables for them. They're, I don't know, was that 10 cables, something like that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 cables. To basically map out from the wiring diagram in the Haynes manual, and then see if I can match that up to the new sketchy wiring diagram that we have from the new speedometer. So the speedometer clock unit that I went for is this. It's basically a sort of Chinese universal digital speedometer and tachometer with indicator lights, neutral lights and things like that built into it. I was going to splash out for something a little bit more pricey, but I wasn't entirely sure if Mrs. Shoogly is going to stay with this naked look, or if she was want to put the fairing back on at some point. I deliberated for a while. I read some reviews on these, and they seemed to get a decent review for, I think it's about 30 quid that I paid for it. So for 30 quid, the reviews seem pretty decent. So plan is fit this up, and if it works, well, we're quids in. So this has a multitude of cables as well. I've not counted them yet, but it'll be something similar because it has the same functions as the original one. So the plan is basically to, like I say, map out these ones from the wiring diagram, see if I can line it up with these ones, splice all the cables, join them together, and hopefully plug this in, and it will be simple. It's never simple. So one thing I've done is I've removed the plugs from the block connector, purely because this is a male, is it male? Yeah, male-sided 9 socket connector, and I don't actually have a female side for that. But also, there's a bunch of these I'm not going to use. This one has a built-in gear indicator in it, but the bike doesn't have a gear indicator, so I've kind of blanked those off, which means I'm able to amalgamate the neutral switch into these. So I now have 10 here. So what I'm going to do is set up a 6 and a 4 connector block, and that leaves me with these ones to connect up later. That makes it just a little bit easier to get my head around, because funnily enough, the instructions it comes with are absolutely hopeless. One of my top tips for wiring up a universal, and I use that word very lightly, electronic item for a motorbike, is that someone else out there will also have bought it before, because they're cheap and they're everywhere and they're mass produced. So someone else out there will have bought it before. They will have gone through the struggle of wiring it, and they will have created a YouTube video that explains exactly how to do it, so you don't have to. I have found such a video. I'll stick a link to it, so thank you very much to the person who toiled to get this thing straight. But basically they do admit in the video that the wiring diagram that comes with these is wrong. So it basically confirms what I thought. Anyway, my job basically is I've got all my male connectors, all my female connectors. I just need to figure out what goes where, set up some block connectors so they're all kind of grouped, and then it should be a case of plug in and unplug whenever you want, if I can get them all set up right. I know that there is an uneven number of cables, so there's a few that I need to figure out what their purpose is. Like for example earlier I said the gear indicators on this I'm not going to use, so I think there's a couple other functions that this thing can do that I'm not going to need. So anyway, that's basically, I need to get my head down now and actually watch this video, compare it to my wiring diagram, and see if I can get these things connected up. So the original speedometer only had 2 cables going into it. It's a digital speedometer. It only had 2 cables going into the speedo part of the clocks, and basically I deduced that it didn't have a power supply, and the power supply to the speed sensor comes from elsewhere on the bike. The new speedometer is like a 3-pin plug because one of those is that power supply. So the new sensor that they give you, the magnetic one, requires that power supply. Whereas on the Yamaha Fazer, the speed sensor is already fed up power from elsewhere on the bike, so actually you only need 2 of those 3 pins. So after a little bit of trial and error, because it's only 3 pins, it didn't take that many configurations, I've managed to get it working. So let's just demonstrate that. I'm jacking up the front of the bike. just to get the front wheel off the ground a wee bit. Now with the front wheel off the ground, just make sure you can see the speedo. If I spin the wheel, there you go. 14 miles an hour is pretty much all I can get to. I'll do that again. 13 that time, I'm running out of steam. But it works. So if I let the front of the bike back down, essentially that's all of it wired up. The only thing I need to wire in are the oil pressure light, because obviously this doesn't have one, and there's also a little warning light on the original one for the coolant temperature, so I'm going to wire in another little light for that too. Those are going to get mounted into the bracket that holds the speedo on, so that's my next job, is to fabricate that bracket. If anyone has this exact speedometer and wants to fit it to a Yamaha Fazer, the cables you need to connect are the white one is going to connect in to the grey one. I don't know if you can just see the grey one back there, the grey one from the speedometer unit, and there's a blue with yellow tracer that connects into the white one, and the green one basically doesn't need anything. That's the power supply that, as like I said earlier, gets fed from elsewhere on this bike. So just those two cables, white into grey and blue with yellow tracer into white, and hopefully the digital speedo, the speed sensor on the Yamaha Fazer will work. So next up, modify that bracket I did last time. Quite happy with the position of the mounting holes, so all I really need to do is reshape this top section for the speedo to basically bolt on with these two bolts. Sounds easy enough, just want to make sure I get it nice and square, and then get cutting and drilling. Easy peasy, right? So after a bit of fabrication, we have our bracket. All I need to do now is get it sprayed up, painted. There's some rubber sort of vibration reducing grommets, that's the word, grommets to go into it, and then I've got two holes for my oil pressure sensor and coolant temperature sensor to go in there, and then mount it up, plug the plugs in, and job's done. Well, that's that job done. All I need to do is figure out the wiring to shove it all inside the headlight and make that bit look a bit neater, but I can't be bothered just now. It's like 10 o'clock at night and it's raining and bed is calling my name. But yeah, just a bit of neatening to stuff those cables into the headlight and job's a good one. Aside from that, that's the speedo all mounted up and wired in, and it functions well. It functions perfectly, and I think it definitely improves the front of this bike for the money, like 30 quid. I highly recommend it. This wasn't really intended to be a sort of how-to wiring thing. There's plenty online, like I said, I'll link to one of them that I used, but I hope that kind of gives you an idea of what it's like to fit it onto this bike in particular. With that done, I can turn my attention to getting back onto the XJR 1300. My next job on that, basically after I've taken all the gubbins off of it, is to just have basically an investigation to the condition of the engine, and that will give me basically an idea of what work the engine needs, if any. Probably some, but I've got some things lined up to inspect it and then get an idea for anything that will need imminently done to it. Last week I finally got to meet up with Struan from Remotorcycled. It's really bizarre with the sort of pandemic and everything going digital, is that I made a friend in Struan over the pandemic, but via the internet. And despite my parents warning me as a child not to meet up with strangers from the internet, I did in fact, and I drove up, met Struan for the day. We talked a lot of shit, talked about motorbikes, ate some ice cream, and took Rufus's dog for a walk, who is an amazing dog, by the way. If you don't already follow Struan, please do check him out, subscribe to his channel. He does some amazing stuff. He's basically building a XS 750, 850, something like that just now, and he has basically gone to the nth degree to fabricate everything on that bike, so I'm really impressed with his drive and determination to things like carbon fibering and fiberglass and 3D modelling and 3D printing and CAD and all these things that feel way out of my ballpark just now anyway. So yeah, go check him out. Struan is also closing in on the 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. Anyway, waffle over. Thank you for watching this if you got this far. Did you get this far? Did anyone get this far? Let me know. Anyway, as usual, please do give me a like, comment, and keep subscribing to the channel. It's really cool to see the growth, and like I say, thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed already. I'm going to bed. Hope you've enjoyed it. Good night. Bye bye. Bye bye bye. Right turn is dark green to light blue. Fuel level indicator light, deep blue, high beam light, which is the middle one next to the fuel meter, is sort of light green.